Remember, there are no rules in cooking. Taste this. Hi, welcome to Taste This TV. I'm Chef Joe Ciminera. You know, where do you go to get fine handcrafted pastas in large cities like New York? Well, I'm going to see my friend Alessandra, who's whipping up handmade, crafted pastas that are worth the treat. Come inside, taste some pastas with me on Taste This. Hey, Alessandra, how are you?
Welcome, Joe.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
You know, I'm starving, and when I think of fresh pastas in New York City, I come to you.
You're in the right place. I have a great couple of plates.
So we're going to eat today?
Absolutely.
What do you got?
Some great stuff. I have butternut squash gnocchi with
Interesting.
sun-dried tomatoes, Parmesan cheese, butter and sage sauce.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
Sweet and tasty.
Excellent. Well, why don't we go and taste some food?
Right this way.
Well, here it is, the famous butternut gnocchi combination.
Absolutely. This is it's a great dish. Just brings up the sweetness of the butternut squash. The squash is first roasted with onions, carrots, and celery, and then it's blended to a nice puree. The gnocchi is a homemade potato gnocchi, so it's nice and soft and not too heavy. And it's topped with Parmesan cheese and crispy sun-dried tomatoes. And the sauce is added a little bit of butter and sage, just to give it a little more sweetness.
This is incredible. You know, when I think about a gnocchi and how they're supposed to taste, what I can't stand is like a heavy gnocchi falling apart.
Absolutely.
This, you can see, holds its shape perfectly. They're cooked perfectly, they're not raw in the center, and they really adhere to the sauce, which is another pet peeve of mine when people don't make thick enough sauce. You can see the sauce is really thick, coats the gnocchis perfectly. One other thing I want to talk about are these sun-dried tomato flakes here, which are really interesting. So what's that all about?
It just give it a little bit of more crispiness to the dish, and it also a little bit of color to make it more interesting on the flavor and also on the eyes.
And I like the sauce, and the fact that the sauce actually adheres to the gnocchi, which is a big thing too. It's not too thin, it's not too thick, but the flavors, this is definitely a winner. What do we got next?
We have the homemade whole-wheat fettuccine with chestnut puree, sausage, and mushrooms.
Now, this seems like a very interesting combination here. Looks fabulous. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Absolutely. This is just a homemade whole-wheat fettuccine with Italian sausage, mushrooms. We use shiitake mushrooms in this dish.
Very nice. Well, it looks wonderful. I mean, all the sauces just coat the pasta, coat the protein really good. And I think that's important when you're talking about good pastas and you're talking about great sauces, is that they need to be cooked down to a thick bubble consistency. This way, everything sort of kind of sticks together. Again, big fan on sauces that are cooked right. Let's go down the hatch with this one. Definitely a winner.
Okay, so what we have here is the fusilli alla viennese. It's a homemade fusilli pasta with slow heat meat ragu with veal and pork. And this is cooked slow heat for about 4 hours.
Really? That's the way to do it. You know, even when I cook my meat sauce, I put a whole ton of meats in there, from everything from ribeye, New York strips to stew, and I just stew that baby down. You know, any kind of meat, as long as you cook it down 4 to 6 hours,
Absolutely.
you're good.
Absolutely.
You know?
I will suggest you this with a little bit of Parmesan cheese.
Absolutely. That's a must. And extra oil at the end.
Extra oil will be
which
a
I
great
noticed
touch.
that you
It's already been
give
put
that
on.
touch. All right, let's
Enjoy.
And the pasta here is a cavatelli?
This is fusilli.
Oh,
which is
fusilli.
also a traditional pasta from the Avellino region, from the Campania region, exactly from Avellino. And the pasta in itself is made just with water, flour, and semolina. It's sort of like al dente, has a little different consistency.
I was just going to say, to the tooth. Very
exactly.
good. And the cheese really marries nicely.
Absolutely. Parmesan cheese always helps to blend the flavors together.
This is great. Well, Alessandro, thank you for having me here.
It's been a pleasure having you.
Pleasure.
We'll see you again.
Hi, welcome to Taste This TV. I'm Chef Joe Ciminera. We're here at Pizza Art in New York City. What makes this pizzeria different from any pizza establishment here in New York? The ingredients and the toppings are what makes this place unique. So let's step inside, taste some creations from the Neapolitan region of Italy on Taste This. And now we have our first pizza called the Verace. Now, what's really good about these types of pizza that comes out in Pizza Art is that you can see the crust is perfectly cooked. It's done in a brick oven with wood burning in the back. It should always give you that crispiness that you want on the bottom of the pizza. Now let's talk about the top of the pizza. Cheese is very important. Here they're using the best, buffalo mozzarella. You can't get any better than that. And it's delicately, evenly spaced and melted on top. And the sauce. So I don't like too much sauce on the pizza where it kind of drips off with the cheese. This is the right amount of sauce, and the color is good too, because you can see this light tomato, this red tomato sauce color, which is an indication that they're using either quality tomatoes or home tomatoes. You know, now to the taste test here. One thing I always love about pizza too is fresh basil. If you're putting fresh basil on a pizza, I love it. If you're putting dried oregano or dried basil, I'm not sure I like it that much. This pizza looks delicious. Down the hatch. Not bad, an incredible combination. This wine, which is a dry wine, goes perfect with the style of this pizza, and of course the buffalo mozzarella. One more bite, and I'm on to the next pizza. Now we have Pizza Art's Quattro Gusti, which they call it. 4 different compartments of each different kind of flavors of pizza. Let's go over here to the smoked mozzarella, broccoli rabe, and sausage. A couple of different flavors here that I taste. One is quality sausages. Perfect combination. Even sausages these days can be fouled up. This sausage is incredible. The smoked flavor of the cheese really takes this slice of pizza to the next level. And no, you might think that there might be some bitterness coming from the broccoli rabe. Not the case at all. The beautiful balance of flavors only complement the broccoli rabe on this, not take away anything. Now we're gonna go next. This could be my favorite here, which is some mushrooms, truffles, speck, and a whole lot of fun. Very good. And the last one is their parmigiano. Eggplant, sliced delicately, and then you also have the shaved parmigiano cheese on that baby that you see, going right down and dirty. Well, it passes the eggplant test. My eggplant test is that it's not saturated with oil when you bite into it. And the also eggplant test that I have, which is pet peeve, is that the eggplant is not bitter. This is not. So this pizza, Quattro Gusti, passes all of my tests. But I can't wait to go over to the stuffed calzone right now. So here's the stuffed calzone. I like the way they do it. They got a little twist going on here where they put a little bit of sauce and basil on the top, which you don't see much. This particular calzone is baked, although you can get it fried. Now, good calzone will always be crispy on the bottom. This one is. As you can see, they are not cheap with their meat. This one has ham in there, and it's sliced ham, wonderful balance of cheeses in there, and they don't skip. Like, you ever go to a pizzeria and then you eat this calzone, you're like searching for the ham. You're like, where's this piece of ham? Then you get a piece of ham on the corner, you get one maybe on the side. This, I guarantee you, every single bite has a piece of ham for you. Let's put the seasoning cheese to test, because like many calzones, they get stuffed in unseasoned, if this fits the bill. This calzone is in a class of its own. Enough Parmesan cheese in here to make salt take a walk. Really good flavors. The dough here is incredible. It tastes a bit different than the pizza dough, which is good. You know, we don't want the same dough being made on everything. This looks good, tastes good. This is also a winner. Well, this is going to conclude this pizza segment. I'm going to head back over to the test kitchen and whip up some more great recipes. So don't go anywhere. Taste this. So now, whenever you get started on cooking pizza, you know, in the convenience of your home or restaurant, etc., I'm going to show you a way that that you can make dough and never fail. Now, I'm doing a 50-pound bag of flour today just because I've gotten some emails of people wanting to know how to do big batches of dough and what I do to get my dough pretty crispy. And there's a couple of tricks to it. First off, you could use either a small mixer or you can use a 60-quart. This is a 60-quart Hobart Legacy mixer, and you can use any smaller mixer that they have to make your dough. This is what's called a dough attachment, a dough arm attachment. And this here will actually keep the dough
moving and mixing without overworking it. So there's a science behind, you know, the twirl of this particular attachment. And of course, there's a couple of things that you need to know. Now, I've already put some water in there. Now, some people like to use 5 quarts of water, others 6. It really depends on how you like your pizza dough. In here is 6 quarts of water. I like mine a little bit on the kind of mushy side, just because I like to set it up and control how the yeast grows with the dough. So there's a couple of things that need to go in there. Now, some people say, let's use warm water, it'll activate the yeast. I use cold water. I feel you can control the temperature. You're going to set it out and leave it out to rise anyway, or you're going to put it into the refrigerator. By using hot water, it activates the yeast way too quickly, and sometimes you can't control how quick it rises. If you're looking for a quick rise, then use the warm water. If you're looking to kind of put the dough in the refrigerator and use it when you want to, 2 days or something like that, then I recommend using the cold water. So we got cold water in there. Next thing that goes in there is salt. You want a good amount of salt. This is just regular kosher salt, so we're going to throw that in there. Now, if you're looking for the iodine in the salt, kosher salt doesn't have that, so you'll want to switch it. Next, this is sugar. Now, the sugar is a very important activation product that'll help the yeast do its magic. Now, if you don't have sugar, you can use honey. I've even seen people use like soda. I mean, anything that's sweet will contribute and help the yeast do its magic. So we got our sugar going down there. And again, if you wanted to use truffle honey, I was in this place in Italy a long time ago, and the chef used truffle honey with his dough, and I'm telling you, it was amazing. But you know, you're talking about it's a bit expensive. I use 1 egg in here. Sometimes I use 3, depending on what I want to. If I'm looking to make a Sicilian, like a thick crust, I'll use up to 6 eggs. Control the eggs. I mean, obviously this is a 50-pound bag of flour, so if you're doing a small thing, you could use 1 egg. Over here, I'm doing a real thin crust that I want to show you later, so I'm only going to use 1 egg. But normally with this, I would use 6 to 12, and it'll help with the rising of the dough. It'll help with the crustiness of the dough, and I just feel that when you're looking for that like thick, deep dish type of pizza, the egg is a must. Oh, and don't use pasteurized egg yolks or anything like that either, because they usually hit them with some sort of acid to preserve it. It'll hinder on the health and the growth of the dough. Next, you need oil. Now, I only throw olive oil in there. Okay. Next is the most important when making pizza dough, which is the yeast. Now, you could use dry yeast or you could use wet yeast, which is what I prefer. Looks like this. Most pizzerias will use the wet yeast. However, using the dry is no problem either. I prefer to use the wet yeast, which can be found virtually anywhere these days. You could even get a whole brick. Some people say you could freeze the yeast. I would never do it. Again, when you're making any type of bread or any type of pizza dough, the fresh way is the way to go. So you put your yeast in there. Now, this is kind of the important phase, because if you just kind of turn your mixer on at this point, the yeast doesn't really have a chance to activate itself. So what I do is I take a whisk and I make sure that I'm breaking up all the yeast, all the eggs, and incorporating the salt and the sugar. Now, what you'll see here is white bubbles start to form. That's an indication that the yeast is being activated. And it's a good way too to look to see if you're using good yeast. I mean, because there is such a thing as using dead yeast. So right here, it looks good, it looks activated. Next, what I'm going to do is take this big bag of flour and put it in. Now, keep in mind, you know, when we work here at Taste This, we have a lot of chefs in the kitchen. We do big batches of dough. We test recipes. We do all that kind of good stuff. And yes, the staff eats pretty good around here. But, you know, we're used to doing big batches. But a lot of times I'll try to kind of cut it down for the home cook at home. But I do like to show how things are made in big batches, because there's a lot of food service people that watch the show as well. All right, so you got your bag there. Put that in the corner. Now you have a high gluten flour in there, which is what you want to use. You can use just about any flour that you want. You could use an all-purpose flour or something like that, or whole wheat. You know, if you're using like a gluten-free flour, then I would move you over to another recipe. The dough is going to close at the top. You'll see it in just moments here. And it'll also bring itself away from the sides of the bowl. That's an indication that it's completely done. And then what I like to do after that is just add a little bit of oil to the sides, which will help you bring it out. Okay, now as you can start to see, the dough is kind of coming together. We're a ways off from the dough actually taking off the sides of the bowl and forming a ball. But that's going to happen about 10 minutes on this speed. It's a #1 speed. And any mixer, it'll be your lowest speed. And this is going to start to kind of bring itself and mix. And then what we're going to do is go over to our dough retarder over there and start to make a couple of pizzas. I'm going to show you a couple of different pizzas to make. And then we're also going to make a calzone as well. I'm going to grab a knife. And what I want to do is just cut a piece of the dough off for you, because I want to show you something when you're making dough correctly. If you look close, you'll see these little holes with these little bubble pops in the dough. That's exactly what you want when making a dough. You know that you have an excellent dough. You have the right amount of air content in there. The yeast is going to grow. It's going to expand it. It's going to really gas it up nicely. That's exactly what you want when you're cutting your dough. Next, you want to grab your dough and make sure that it's not sticky on your hands. With this, it's pretty much a no-brainer that we've made it perfect. Now, something real important that you have to do with your dough after it's made is you have to fold your dough in like this and try to take out as many air bubbles and pockets as possible. This will help your dough form into a nice round pizza mold, and it'll also really create some good stuff when it goes in the oven. Now, what I'm doing is pinching the end here, and there's a cheese in Italy called cascavala, and it sort of looks like this. It hangs on a rope. That's kind of what you want to mold these doughs into. So it can hang like that. It's nice and round. You turn it around, and what you do is with a little bit of olive oil, you olive oil the top and you olive oil the bottom. And you do that so that the dough doesn't develop a skin. When the dough develops a skin, you're in trouble, because then when you go to try to knead it and mold it and stuff like that, you're not going to get that elasticity. You're going to get cracking, and it'll really show on your product, and you don't want that. So you mold the dough like that. Give it a slap. You've done it right. And then take a little bit of oil on the top and the bottom, and then you're good to go. So, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to take you to the next phase of this, show you a couple of machines, and get started on making some delicious pizza. So don't go anywhere. Taste this. So now, you have the start of a dough here. Now what we're going to do is sauce this. So I go down with the sauce, because to me, the sauce on the pizza is more important than the cheese. I don't know why. It's just the way I like it. And I like to cook my tomato sauce down with meats first. I don't ever put raw tomato sauce on my pizza, ever. I like to cook it down. I cook it for hours, and I cook it with expensive meats. Really tastes good, all right? Now, you have the sauce down here. What do you do now? Let's say we're making a margarita. So we're going to take some fresh mozzarella here. You just put some diced fresh mozzarella. And I like a combination of the fresh mozz and the regular cheese just because of the flavor. We just put some cheese on top. And again, when I'm making my pizza, I don't put pounds and pounds of cheese on, because I really want to taste everything. We're going to be flavoring this. I have some olive oil. I love to put a little fresh olive oil on the top. Some people don't like greasy pizza. I love it. I like it when it just kind of runs down your hands. That's how you know you got a good pizza. Now next is my secret seasoning here that I'll let you folks know, but don't tell anybody. It's dried oregano, dried parsley, some salt, some garlic powder. It's about the only time in my cooking career that I ever use dry herbs is when I'm making pizza. So we're just going to generously put some over the top. And you're going to have an incredible pizza. Let's throw this in. Okay, so we got our dough here, right? So how big is perfect for a calzone? Well, probably half of this. So what I like to do is flatten it out a little bit. Just give it a little bit of flour and semolina. You don't need much. This just kind of helps it from sticking. And then I put it in the machine here. and it comes out and gives me a nice roll. Really quick. So it rolls it, takes it out, and then what you do is just stuff it. And as you can see, that's why I like to put a little semolina flour on there, because I like to make my dough a little bit on the runny side, as I explained earlier in the kitchen. And the runnier side means that it's got the tendency to stick in machines. So now you're good. So we got our shaped that we want. Now I've already, just for the sake of time here, seasoned my ricotta with parsley, a little bit of fresh garlic, cooked, not raw, salt, pepper, and a lot of cheese. I like a lot of grated Parmesan cheese. And we're going to put that in the center. Next, we're going to take a little bit of cheese, mozzarella cheese. Now we got that secret seasoning that I told you about before. That goes in there too. Now a lot of people might say, but he seasoned the ricotta, why does he have to season it again? I'm actually seasoning the dough. The dough has no flavor. It has a little bit of salt that we put in there earlier, but it doesn't have enough flavor that we could just say, hey, okay, let's just make a calzone. Because every time someone takes a bite at the end that doesn't have a lot of ricotta or no ricotta, they're not going to taste anything, and then they're going to get turned off. So let's spread this a little bit. Now, I like to put a little bit of pepperoni in my calzones. And we're going to reach this over like this. Now, the typical making of the calzone is a round shape. I like to push it down a little bit. And then what you can do is take this, this roller that we have here. After you've taken a fork, take your cutter, and these can be made into garlic knots. You ever see those garlic knots you see at a pizzeria? What they do is they get made like this. So what we got is this calzone. I'm just going to put a little bit of flour here, rub it around. I'm going to take my calzone, I'm going to put it right to the fryer. We have it on 425. We're going to deep fry it. I'm going to show you how it comes out. We're going to bring this, the two pizzas, to the table and talk about what we did today, so don't go anywhere. We got our flat calzone. It's really the best way that I like to eat a calzone is fried. I'm not a big fan of the bake. It's hard top, hard bottom. You got to smash it before you get any substance. I'm going right into this fryer, and how I'm going to do it is I'm just going to take the calzone. I'm dipping it in the oil first. I'm not just dropping it down, and then away from me, I'm going to let it go. Today I have a couple of pizzas and a calzone that we finished. We really did this show from start to finish, where we made the dough from scratch, we let it rest, we rolled it out. I showed you a couple of different presses, a couple of different options that you have if you're not a pizza maker to get your pizza as round as it can be. A couple of different simple toppings that I enjoy, and of course our grand finale, which is our calzone here, which is a winner, because deep fried, you can see it. You see how it gets like the little bubbles there? This is the first thing I'm going to jump into in a minute. But thank you for watching this fun-filled episode of Taste This TV. I'm your host, Chef Joe Ciminera. Remember, there are no rules in cooking. Taste this.